I hope it'll happen, release will happen very soon, and I promise you, wherever I am traveling, I will come back in time for the book release. That's one. Uh, Be the Book, as I said, is a story of how an author goes about creating a book and the frustrations that the author faces at every turn. It starts with the idea itself. Will this idea be good? Will the idea be bad? Will it be accepted? Who's going to tell us? Go ahead and write it. So Padmini has a dictionary up front where she talks about what is your personal definition of various aspects of a book process, what is the outside world's definition of it, and what is the dictionary's definition of it. So that is when this whole world of how difficult it is really comes out, because you think an idea is great, the publisher thinks it stinks, and then finally the audience which buys it, suddenly it turns out to be a bestseller. And she's quoted 4 or 5 examples in this book of authors whom I personally wouldn't touch with a barge pole, but I know that their books sell in several millions today. So it just goes to show that there is no accounting for public taste when you know what sells and what doesn't sell. And I must say I commend those publishers who rejected those books up front, because they are not really great. But so there is the whole process of the idea. Then there is the process of writing. And finally, there is the process of taking it around to the various publishers and saying, will you publish my book? Will you publish my book? Will you publish my book? And at each stage, the publisher says, we will only publish if you have already published 2 other books. And Padmini's question is, what happens if I'm a first-time author? Who's going to publish me then? There isn't anybody like that. So finally, it comes around to the travails of self-publishing. And then it is not only self-publishing, it is self-layouting, if there is a process like that. How do you define the layout of the book? Then self-marketing, self-promotion, which as Tambrams we are total failures at. I'm sure if it had been given to a Punjabi just with the cover, they would have gone around, sold the film rights in the Scandinavian, and then started off writing the book. But then we are Tambrams, we are told, ஐயோ இதெல்லாம் திருஷ்டி விழுந்துருமா, முதல்ல எடுத்துட்டு போகாதே, எழுதின அப்புறம் முதல்ல இது விஜயதசமி அன்னைக்கு அம்பாள் முன்னாடி வச்சுட்டு அம்பாள் முன்னாடியே தான் இருக்கும், அதுக்கப்புறம் it's never going to go anywhere. So this humility that we are brought up with as good Tambrams, and this frightful scare of the drishti or the evil eye, is something that, you know, we may have to discard sometimes. So finally, self-marketing and then self-pricing. Everything is here. So what is it that the author does not do at the end of the day? They've been involved at every stage of the book, including the selling of it. And finally, if it sells, very good. If it doesn't sell, the author is once again blamed. Woodhouse writes about how there is a formula. If an editor accepts your book, take one more book to him. If the editor rejects the book, take it to another editor. This is the only formula that Woodhouse gives. And Dickens, incidentally, writes the same thing. I don't think experiences have really changed over the centuries ever since the first book was written. I'm sure somewhere up there, Shakespeare is smiling down at all of us and saying, God knows how much difficulty I had in taking around The Tempest or The Comedy of Errors or whatever it was to try and get a publisher for it. So, Padmini, wonderful book. Very, very readable, and I'm not going to let out everything that is in the book. Written with a great touch of humor. That is the most important thing, and Padmini herself writes a lot about the importance of being humorous in a book, which I think is certainly a very, very commendable thought